going to introduce Bill. My name is Amy McARTHUR. I'm the LexisNexis Sales Director for Law Firm Practice Management. And I know many of you have been by our booth for the LexisNexis research, which we're huge proponents of, but we're actually here for the software side. So we're passionate about law firm profitability. We're here for Time Matters, PC Law, and Juris. And when you think about profitability, really there's three ways to impact that, right? You have your earn more, lose less, and gain and retain clients. And I know you guys are here to learn about gaining and retaining clients. And with LexisNexis, our software actually kind of goes along with that. If you can improve your employee happiness, right, through giving them systems that are efficient and easy to use, businesses that have greater customer and client interaction and engagement actually have 18% higher client retention. So if you can make your employees happy, you can gain and retain more clients. And I'll let Bill, kind of the expert at rainmaking, teach you a little bit more about that. Thanks, Bill.
Good afternoon. How are you all doing after a full day? Hanging in there. Excellent. Glad to hear it. This will be a quick overview of rainmaking. I guess with not a longer intro, so I do law firm, lawyer, consulting, coaching. I have worked with lawyers exclusively for the last 15 years. You can learn more on some of the handouts and materials that I've provided, so we'll keep that nice and brief. Speaking of handouts, so there are 7 that were provided digitally. I'm not sure if you have them on thumb drives or if they were emailed to you, but this is what you have. The business development self-assessment, you score yourself in about 70 prompts, 1 through 5. How are you doing with targeting work? How are you doing with feeling confident about your messaging, etc.? The business development outline has 10 elements. It's about 4 pages. And I would say that it covers just about every aspect of rainmaking or legal business development that you're going to find anywhere in an outline form to say these are the 10 elements that you should be paying attention to. The niche analysis tool, I'm going to speak about in a little more detail in a moment. Time management self-assessment is also a self-scoring tool because people will often say, where am I going to get the time to do these things? Fair enough. You can walk out with some good ideas and say, how will I execute them? How will I implement them given how busy I am? Then there are 2 articles used by permission from a guy named David Maister. Some of you may know or have heard of David Maister. He wrote The Trusted Advisor, Managing the Professional Service Firm, on how to build trust with clients and what that really looks like, as well as how clients choose. There are 2 articles. They've been around for a long time. Clients Choose has got to be 20 years old. He walks you through the experience of hiring a lawyer from the client's shoes, from the client's eyes, writes in the first person of a client. You seem like you know what you're doing, but I have a concern about this, and this is how it makes me feel. It's a very powerful window into the mind of an experience of a client who may be thinking about hiring you. And the 7th article is an article I wrote for Connecticut Lawyer Magazine on mastering the inner challenge of business development, because there's a whole lot of psychology and emotional intelligence, which I'll be referencing, around how do you push yourself to a workable edge to take some risks to do things that maybe you're not comfortable or haven't been comfortable doing before. Finally, if you text 444-999, the word resources to 444-999, you'll be brought to a page where you can download my practice development resource pack. It's about 125 pages, and it contains many more tools, checklists, PowerPoint presentations, for example, on time management, if you want to get an inside look into some of that. Life balance, personnel management, how you get the most out of your people. So I encourage you to access that resource pack. So 2 key terms first. People tend to refer to client development, rainmaking, marketing, sales, all lumped together. And I feel that it's really important to understand the distinction between marketing and sales. So marketing are activities that build visibility, credibility in a targeted market or among a targeted audience. It is you to audiences, to groups, not one-on-one. And examples of marketing activities are what you see: writing, speaking, your website, how you use your website, webinars that you may conduct nationally for CLE providers, or for industry-specific learning opportunities, social media, newsletters, advertising. It's you to groups, okay? So LinkedIn, most of you probably have a LinkedIn profile. Presentations on SlideShare. Twitter, we've heard lots about. Twitter is an interesting thing in the legal space. You got to make sure it's used properly and that it works for your practice area. And sales, on the other hand, are specific one-to-one interactions that lead to getting you hired. I would put networking, I don't know if I wander from the mic because I like to move around and you can't hear me, please just call out and say, get back to the podium. I'm happy to do that. So sales, again, refers to the one-on-one interactions that get you hired. And I need to acknowledge up front that sales, for some attorneys, particularly older attorneys, is still an uncomfortable word, maybe even a dirty word. I didn't go to law school to be a salesman, a saleswoman, a salesperson. Fair enough. However, there is a real distinction between putting the word out and then, to use another sales term, close the business. And I unabashedly argue that becoming comfortable and understanding the difference between those terms and is extremely useful for you if you really want to be a rainmaker, in the sense that in the old days we talked about rainmakers, the go-to person prior to the internet and prior to social marketing and websites, et cetera. So we'll talk about networking a little bit more. But examples of sales activities include what I call demos. And so what do I mean by demos? It would be with showing somebody with whom you're in conversation how they might be able to use technology to improve the information they give their lawyers around massive discovery dumps. Not a client yet, but you are actually demonstrating some value and demonstrating something that is of value to them. That is a sales activity. If you are in trust and estates, so that's on the corporate, larger side, individuals, trust and estates, you might meet with someone that you're in conversation with who's in the sales pipeline, and I'm going to provide some additional terms in the next slide, on how certain kinds of unique trusts might provide savings to them. They may or may not hire you. You are not invested yet in assuring they become a client, but you are demonstrating your expertise and giving them some value. That is a sales moment. That is not a marketing moment. They've already come to you. You're sitting one-on-one with them. What do I mean by research presentations? So it's legal trends, industry trends, regulatory issues, legislative issues, changes and trends that are going to be affecting that person's business. And this is in a B2B environment, particularly a business to business, as opposed to a business to individual person who may be hiring you. So examples of that might be, if you're working with a pharmaceutical company or a medical supply company and you've read about the coming off, and I don't have the terminology exactly right, but international importation of generics that are going to be affecting this company, you might say, hey, I know that you've got a law firm, and fair enough, I'm not looking to replace them or supplant them. However, we're doing research and we have a team of people who are looking at this issue, and would you be interested in learning about that if we were able to share with you some strategies that might allow you to better prepare yourself for what's coming down the pike? They may say yes, they may say no. But that's an example of providing some research. Trainings might be teaching useful skills. For example, how to organize medical records in big class action. So that, whoever the lawyer is, if you're in a conversation with someone, or a general counsel or a deputy general counsel, you can explore, and we're going to talk about this in a moment, how you can actually say, on us, we're willing to provide you some training and provide your people with training so that whoever you use, you're going to have a more efficient, effective result with your team of lawyers. Would you be interested in something like that? So those are sales moments. There's a dichotomy in the world of legal marketing, rainmaking, coaching, and consulting, which says, represented by a guy named Mark Mariah. These are both colleagues of mine and people I respect tremendously. He wrote the book Rainmaking Made Simple. His slogan is, it's all about relationships, and you hear that often. Then there's a guy named Mike Ohoro, you may have heard of. He's been around for a really long time. He says, nah, it's not all about relationships. It's about qualifying sales opportunities and capitalizing on sales opportunities so you actually get the work. His thing is random acts of networking, big red circle, red slash through the big circle, random acts of networking. It's great to spend time networking, building relationships, but if those are not yielding return on investment and gross revenue that you want, then you got to look at both sides of the coin. Little context there. So I argue that there are 4 stages before someone becomes a client. And I mention this because I hear all the time lawyers say, a new client's coming in. And I'll say, is there an engagement letter signed? Is that what you mean by new client? Oh, no, it's a prospect coming in, or a potential new client. And then I'll even ask the question, well, how qualified is that prospective or potential new client already? Do you know that they have a need they're ready to pull the trigger on? Do they have money if it is an hourly fee? So here are the stages. The first stage is a suspect. A suspect, as you can see, is a member of a target community who becomes aware of you somehow because of marketing activities. You spoke, you did a webinar, you did a YouTube video, whatever it is. You did some presentation somewhere. A suspect becomes a prospect only when they choose to learn more about you, either because they ask or they respond to an offer of yours to meet with someone. A prospect only becomes a lead. Let me back up. I was one step ahead. So the suspect is, they're in your target audience. The prospect is someone who says, yeah, I'll subscribe to your newsletter. Yeah, please send me a follow-up email. Doesn't say contact me. They just said, yeah, I'd like that handout that you did, please. Okay? Then a prospect becomes a lead when they accept or invite personal invitation to explore their specific situation. Then, if after that they are still in conversation with you, they become an opportunity because they have the authority, the budget, the willingness, the motivation to make a hiring decision. So do you see that that is a more nuanced path than just prospect or new client? And so how you treat each of those and decide how much time to spend at each stage is essential because you're all incredibly busy. That's my time management program. So those are the 4 stages. Here's what the 4 stages look like in terms of the activity focus of each stage. So rainmakers, again, are aware of these distinctions. They develop skills and activities appropriate to each stage. So the suspect is about visibility. Somebody now knows about you. The prospect says, give me more information. No, I'm not ready to talk. No, we're not going to meet. No, not ready to do coffee. But just send me something. Then, after sending them something, and they say, hey, let's talk about this situation. Okay, that doesn't mean they're going to hire you. But that's a matter of engaging them and screening carefully, because as you know, everyone in this room knows, there are people who will take your time to just tap your legal knowledge. They have no interest in hiring you, right? Or checking out the competition in a B2C environment. It's like, well, what are these going to do? What's your pricing structure? What do you charge for associates, And the skill here, the technique here, not the technique, but the approach, the activity, the mindset is engaging them, asking good questions to screen out the people who don't actually have an opportunity. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So once you've found an opportunity, it's a matter of persuading them that you are the right match. And I am not, people, talking about muscling your way through just blindly saying, I'm better, here, hire us. It is demonstrating value, but that's for a later slide. And then finally, once they become a client, it's about service and retention. And rainmakers know about that. We'll talk about each of those. So, rainmaking, to sum up, is the art of consistently bringing in profitable work into the firm through both marketing activities and sales activities. So there are 10 elements that you'll see in good rainmakers. The first is they set goals. They develop measurable objectives. They track key metrics, evaluate their metrics regularly, they evaluate their activities regularly, and I'm going to say a little bit about it not being like the old days, because we still have in our minds, I believe, the notion of the rainmaker. There's someone, depending on your communities, if you're all in Manhattan, then you have your sphere. If you're out in the burbs, or you're coming from Westchester, or wherever you are, then, excuse me, you know that there are folks who've been in firms for, 20, 30 years or longer, and they're just sort of the go-to people. They're on the boards of this, they were elected officials, and they're kind of the old-fashioned definition of a rainmaker. They know everybody, they'll put you through, yeah, give me a lead. It's really different. So, measurable objectives, what do I mean by that? It's deciding, for example, what percentage of your revenue, what percentage of your matter list do you want to be of a certain type, of a certain tier? Instead of just saying, I'll take anything, or I do, healthcare law, okay? Is that a small solo acupuncturist who's going to pay $3,500 for a partnership agreement or some incorporation? Is it a $100,000 matter of someone who is going to be investing in an acute care facility financing deal? What do you want? Percentage of gross revenue and also you'll state those objectives by such and such a date. Back to my pre-coaching days as an educator, high school teacher, I would always describe the difference between goals and objectives. A goal is an aspiration. It's a big picture. I want to get in shape. I want to be less stressed. I want to have more time. I want to make more money. All great. Goals. Objectives are measurable states in time. I want to weigh 150 with a resting pulse of X by January 1, 2019. See the difference between I want to get in shape and this is what I want to be at? Rainmakers set goals, is the point. Goals, metrics are around tracking your activities include how many articles did you write? How many LinkedIn invitations did you accept? And these are just examples. There's 100 of them, right, depending on your unique context. How many follow-up meetings did you have? How much time did you spend researching cutting-edge client issues or studying regulatory concerns that will be of a client? Putting numbers to your inputs. And people will often ask, when I undertake a rainmaking or marketing or business development program, when will I see results? And that depends on a lot of things. But what I always say, and is applicable across the board, is measure your inputs. Track what you do. Don't automatically start tracking results right away, because there is going to be a lag between the activities that you do consistently and when you start seeing return on investment, when you start seeing closed business. So the point is, measure your inputs. Your inputs are the activities and actions that you take. And evaluate monthly means, keep a calendar of your activities. I have clients who have a marketing calendar, and it says, okay, every 90 days they're going to publish a blog post, and then they do this, and they have 3 one-on-one lunches, targeted lunches on the calendar at any one time, so that it's the first thing they do after coming back from one of those. They look at their list and they say, I'm going to get another one on my calendar, even if that's a month and a half away, so that at any one time I always have 3 meetings on my calendar. That's tracking and evaluating their, you know what? That's right. If I'm rushed, it's because I'm aware of the time, so we started a little bit late, and if I'm talking too fast, I would love it if anybody in the room just said, slow down, I can handle that. I'm aware of partly the short time frame and trying to scope this down, and my natural crazy enthusiasm for this stuff. So targeting work is the second of the 10 elements that rainmakers have in their head. In that document that I call the resource pack, that you can text by texting resources to 444-999. I have my PowerPoint slides and additional resources for the law niche success program that I teach. And I commend that to you if you are interested in answering the question, should I go into some niches, and how do I figure those out? What's profitable? Does that mean I have to say no to other things? How would I transition from 5 or 6 areas into a handful of more targeted areas? So You can find that in that resource pack. The reason that you want to target work very specifically is so that you can differentiate yourself. So think of this pyramid. Catch this visual if you can. So there's a pyramid. You got 1.3 million lawyers, 890,000 roughly private practice when you take out the judges and the rest of the judiciary, retired. And then so out of 800 and something thousand lawyers, you have some smaller segment that are business lawyers, right, or transactional lawyers. And then within transactional, because transactional can be all kinds of things, they're business lawyers. And then up the pyramid, healthcare lawyers. There are people who are, I used the reference before, zeroing in on acute care facilities law because hedge fund money is pouring into that space. They are keeping track of healthcare reform, obviously, and they are saying, you know what, and I know one person in particular who would say, yeah, I'm a business lawyer. I'm pretty good. I don't claim to be the best, but has done enough of these that now when he's speaking about acute care facilities and he's talking to audiences and he's finding networks to talk to, and he says, here's what I know about this, and they say, oh, you've done 17 or 18 of these in 7 different states? Who do you think is going to get a little more mind share time, a few more minutes in the minds of the person who's considering that need, that legal need? That person who has demonstrated they're top of the pyramid in that particular need, or a general transaction lawyer, or might be a litigator, but general transaction lawyer, or a business lawyer, even a healthcare lawyer. Differentiate yourself because every city has big firms with healthcare practices, big and small firms. So it's about differentiating. By differentiating, it allows you to deepen your expertise. It allows you to spend your precious time researching and learning about something, assuming that you're in line with a trend, right? Meaning that you're not into some really arcane practice area where no one is going to spend money on that. So you've got to line it up properly, but that's what the niche analysis tool is about that you have in your thumb drive. Did they come in a thumb drive? Is that what you got the? All right, thank you. So when you deepen your expertise, you can earn the go-to status, which of course allows you to, what? Increase your rates. And a little increase in rates over time in your practice area can make a huge difference to the quality of your life. And that's assuming, I'm not suggesting you willy-nilly raise your rates just to gouge. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm saying earning the credibility because you are an expert in something, and I say that advisedly because you can't say that on your website, as you know, that you're experts, right? So rainmakers set targets. They zero in. They go for expertise. And you may have heard this adage, we have 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in that proportion. So rainmakers are good communicators. So they focus on client centricity. What do I mean by that? If I had $1 for every lawyer website that talked about them and what school they went to and their reported cases and them on the website and their firm and the picture of the skyline and the picture of their building. I'm coming to a website because I may have a need for you. I don't really care about that. So what do I mean? Here's the difference. You talk about that. Rainmakers talk about them, not themselves. They talk about benefits of working with them, not the features of working with them. This is how many lawyers we have. This is what our technology is. Those are features. People don't really care about features yet. They may eventually further down the pipeline. Rainmakers talk about results, not process. So that's what I mean by client centricity. What do they care about? And trust me, even a Fortune 100 DGC who's responsible for a $15 million or $150 million budget and doing medical device defense cares about whether or not he or she thinks you get it, about their needs, and you're talking about them first. So that's what I mean by client centricity. And listening better. There's so much written about how lawyers need to listen, which more effectively, because if you've been around a while, you sort of know the trajectory of the case, and you're tempted to want to start talking about the answers prematurely. Wait, ask more questions. Micro Horror, it's not one of your handouts, it's in my that resource pack has a great article called Asking Questions, or How to Ask High-Value Questions. He actually provides a script with samples. This is what a typical lawyer would do. Here's how it closes off the conversation. Here's a way to ask deeper questions. Even though you're tempted to give the answer, ask another question. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Passion and curiosity is about stepping out of your lawyer's shoes and getting into the mind of the person you're speaking with. And passion, what do I mean by that? Why you? Why do you do this area of law? What is it about for you? You can find something within yourself, some narrative going back to childhood, grandparents, influences. In the niche analysis, in the niche PowerPoint that is in the resource pack, I have examples of 10 or 15 very successful niche practices. Big firms who focus on, where a lawyer focuses on a particular thing, solos, and everybody in between in terms of size of the firm. And if you look at a lot of their bios, they will say they're not typical lawyer bios. They will convey why they care. People look at lawyer bios, and I would just suggest you can, if you want to learn about that, feel free to give me a call. Door openers and triggers is part of communicating. And I would say that this and the next piece, demonstrating relevance, are as important as anything I'm going to share with you in this session. So if you're a family lawyer, what happens? What are the typical events that cause somebody to pick up the phone to call you now? They may have been thinking, rarely does somebody say, I'm waking up this morning, no other previous problem, and I'm going to get a divorce today. That generally does not happen, right? Businesses don't say, we're going to put an RFP on XYZ. They don't just wake up and say, everything's fine, let's do an RFP because we have nothing better to do. There are triggering events. There are causes. And you need to understand what those are, understand the impact of those triggering events. Door openers are high-value questions that I referred to earlier that will get somebody talking about their situation. Rainmakers instinctively or by training learn how to do these. Finally, or in a related fashion, they demonstrate relevance. And so people often talk of, networking tends to remain limited to this in networking sessions. And I'm not knocking anybody else who teaches networking, because you need to network, absolutely. The 60-second elevator speech, right? You've heard of that. What do? You have a quick answer. It is so much more than that. It is being able to understand that, for example, Lee Rosen, Rosen.com, if you want to see an unbelievably successful attorney. He started as a solo. He's got so many folks now, but it's Rosen.com, family lawyer in, I want to say it's either North or South Carolina. So one of the first guys who had teams of psychologists, coaches, all kinds of ancillary services and partnerships that he would provide his clients. And that's because he's demonstrating relevance rather than, what are your assets? Let's do an asset thing. We're going to have to do evaluation of the spouse's business, and we're going to get so much more because he focuses on demonstrating relevance. Remember, this is a very high-level overview of the 10 elements of rainmaking. The fourth element is that rainmakers track their contacts. And pardon the odd analogy. I was like, that's a contact. I didn't want to put like an old-fashioned Rolodex, and I thought maybe like an email something or other, but I thought it was an arresting image. So, track your contacts. Rainmakers complete their list. And I say that because I know there are people in this room who, wherever you keep your contact list, it is not complete. You have cards in your desk. You have emails that have signature files, right, from a lawyer that you never got into your contact list. And then when you want to find that person, you might go back and search their name and say, where's that last email? Because that's where their contact is, their phone number and email, et cetera, right? So rainmakers know that their contact list is gold, which is why one of the first and most popular contact list management tools prior to the cloud was Goldmine. There was Act and Goldmine. You may remember hearing those two brands or those two products. So they add to it regularly. Here is a tip, speaking of email signatures. I use a tool called Copy to Contact. I encourage you to write this down. Copy to with the number 2 contact. It's $49. It will grab, all you do is select the signature line. Whatever is in the signature line of somebody who sends you something, and I use Outlook. I think it works for Gmail. and I hit Control CC, it opens a new contact in Outlook, and it magically populates all the fields correctly. The name, the phone number, the address, anything and everything. The notes, if they have more stuff in their signature field. And that way you can add somebody right away into your, if you're using Outlook, your contact list. So the point is that rainmakers pay attention to that, they add to it, and they tend to it regularly, meaning they look at it on a quarterly basis and they say, who should I touch base with? Is there someone here whose matter closed around say 6 months ago that I might want to just do a quick follow-up to? Phone call, email. It's been 6 months since we were closed on a divorce case, on a PI case, how you do, whatever it is at post-settlement. They use it to say, I want to connect to people who not only were clients, but who sent me business. So they pay attention and they block time. Rainmakers block time to look at their contact list, their personal contact list, their firm contact list. Rainmakers also use multiple channels of outreach. And this is what I meant by it's different from the old days, pre-internet, where you were in Martindale or lawyers.com, right? You had the book and you needed someone that you were looking for somebody. Or you went to a CLE seminar. Maybe you went to a Chamber of Commerce kind of event. There were a handful of channels, options. Now there are many channels. So, look, everybody in this room is going to have channels that are more comfortable for them. Some of you love to speak, but the idea of writing an actual substantive article, kill me. Others of you are the opposite. I love writing, happy to publish stuff. Speaking in front of a group of people, not going to happen. Doesn't matter, there's no right or wrong, but you have to use multiple channels, right? So you can get people to help you with these different channels. You can hire folks. Researching, what might you write about? You can have people say, I'd like you to do, law students from your town? I mean, there's a lot of ways to slice this, skin this cat, not slice the cat. To find look, I want to go after a certain kind of business. These businesses, manufacturers, second, third, fourth generation manufacturers. I know there's the Westchester County Association of Manufacturing Executives or whatever the heck it is. What do they read? What other associations do they read? Call some of those people up. Is their name of an editor of their website? You can have people do the research for you so that you can write and publish in other channels. So let's see. Podcasts are new. Someone actually mentioned them. YouTube, you can create YouTubes with something called YouTube Director. It's a free app from YouTube on your phone. As long as the take is good enough, and they should be probably 45 to 60 seconds, the YouTube Director app for free will put a little bit of music under there if you want it. It'll put you can type in an opening screen and a closing screen and upload it directly to a free YouTube channel. Now, you might have someone in your office do that, but where your job is to say, here's 45 seconds on New York State's, the Supreme Court judge did something about exculpatory Brady material. Anyone see that in the Times this morning? And so I know that there are criminal defense attorneys across the country, because that was in the Times on the homepage, who just do a little 45-second video on it. How much, I put money down on it, that there's going to be, by the end of the day, some little quick videos on this ruling because of its impact on criminal defense work. So, some examples. I just want to say the internet is really complicated. I do a whole seminar, Internet Marketing for Lawyers. Lots of other people do. You got to invest time to learn about that carefully. I have something called the Lawyer's Internet Marketing Ripoff Prevention Guide, which I'm happy to share with you. It may be in the 140-page resource pack. I can't remember. If it's not and you want it, just shoot me an email. I will not even reply with text. I'll just shoot it back to you. Rainmakers also cultivate good referral sources. They do strategic networking rather than these random acts of networking. It is not about simply showing up and schmoozing. What do you do? What do you do? Nice holiday. Nice to hear from you. I'll follow up. That means virtually nothing. So a lot of lawyers will network with other lawyers, but not strategically enough. Is it other lawyers who don't practice in your area? who don't do what you do, where there's some ability. And this is another reason that niching is good. I'm thinking of a particular person who had a general practice firm. They decided that after an analysis that a growing area of their practice was representing public housing authorities and landlord-tenant work. And 6 years later, they rebranded. It's called the Landlord Law Firm, if anyone wants to see it, landlordlawfirm.com. All they represent is landlords. One of the principals is on the board of the Connecticut Apartment Association, whatever. And guess what? Their family, their criminal, everything else, they found really good other lawyers, and they networked into being able to refer that stuff because people still call them. Not as much anymore because they are so dominant in the landlord space. So who else are centers of influence? And what do I mean by a center of influence, a COI? A center of influence is someone who may not be able to directly send you a lot of potential clients themselves, but they can introduce you to others. For example, a VP of commercial lending for a bank who was responsible for managing a team of 20 lenders. That VP probably has a smaller, for sure, they have a smaller personal book of clients. And they may refer to you, but if that VP of business lending can bring you in to say, would you do a presentation for my team of 20 lenders on the new Jobs Act? New. It's 3 or 4 years old now. But that was about, opening up some new channels of providing public funding for smaller businesses. Those people are referral sources. The person who introduced you to all of those 20 people who could become referral sources is the center of influence. Who else are centers of influence? Association heads, marketing directors, editors of high-traffic blogs that are read in the industry or covering the topics that you want to be known for. My wife is a retired AUSA, opened a criminal defense practice focusing on, and then bridged into Title IX, campus sexual assault, all that stuff. It's incredibly hot, as you know, right? So we have she has networked into the people who are really instrumental at a national level on that issue in the legal space. Title IX for All, Association of University Administrators, Title IX coordinators. She's finding those people, and our content is starting to show up there, and those people are giving her name out. So that's a center of influence. And practice trust-building behaviors, I just threw that in there because that's about demonstrating for referral sources. If they're going to take their precious time and risk giving up an hour time to have 20 of their lenders learn something from you, it better be good because you're going to have one shot at that. They're not going to invite you back if it's not good. So how do you sell that opportunity and build trust that it's going to be worth their time? Rainmakers. I love this one. They develop their emotional intelligence. That's what EI is, otherwise, or AKA known as EQ, emotional quotient, because for a lot of reasons. And the article that you have on meeting the inner challenge of business development is germane here. For a lot of reasons, one of the reasons people say they're not a great rainmaker, they're not as successful as they want to be, is because there is internal emotional resistance. And that can be at someone who's saying, I've never cracked 6 figures. 5 years in a row, I'm grossing 80,000, I'm taking home 45. And honestly, this is exactly true for people who say, I've been consistently originating 900 and it's been 5 years and I just can't crack $1 million in origination. What's that about? 5 minutes? Very good. So what else do I want to say about this? They take nothing personally, they don't let rejection stop them, and they learn to make the ask. Not prematurely, but this is a huge piece. It's like, God, I thought the relationship was going so well. I didn't get the business. It is, on some percentage of time, appropriate to say, I believe I've demonstrated for you why we have a process that can help you identify cutting-edge issues that you haven't been addressing to and exposing you to risk. And we would like the opportunity in this matter to represent you on this as a test matter. Can we do that work for you? And for some, and that's challenging to do, but you can learn to do it, and Rainmakers do that. Rainmakers also, and this goes back to the more traditional version of rainmaking or definition of rainmaking, they cross-sell. So you may say, well, it's great for my niche, but I have a lot of contacts, or I work at a mid-sized firm or a large firm, And one of the things they need to do is understand their colleagues' practices, whether it's internal to the firm or, as I said, the person saying, I get opportunity to get this kind of case. We don't do this work, but I'm going to send it to this firm because it's the right tier. Is the person I'm referring this to want this level case? Is this case too big for XYZ potential referral source because they just don't have the capacity? Because that's not good, right? So you need to understand your colleagues' practice well. Really facilitate the relationship. A lot of lawyers, when they talk about rainmaking, will say, I made the call, and say, hey, John, someone in my firm does this kind of mezzanine financing. They'd be great. Good luck. That's not rainmaking. Rainmaking is facilitating a relationship, thinking about helping your person say, here's a little bit about what I know of this company because I do their malpractice defense stuff, and here's some insight that I've had because I've worked with them for years. Here's the person. They mentioned this. I thought of you. I'm going to get you together, and I'm going to give you a couple of bullet points. That's rainmaking, and that's what rainmakers do. They don't just say, hey, Joe, here's Bob. See ya. Rainmakers focus on client service. They deliver timely communication. They focus on the experience. Why do, in the corporate world and maybe even individuals, why is there churn? Why do people hire new lawyers? It's rarely because of a tactical error or some screw up in the law. It's usually because communication wasn't timely. They didn't feel that you were giving them enough attention specifically. Rainmakers also ask, how did it work? They do exit interviews. They garner, they recognize that for me to be a better rainmaker, I have to understand how people are experiencing what I give them. And I'm going to try to apply that. Lastly, they maintain routines. They never stop marketing. It's another colleague of mine, that's his favorite phrase. Rainmakers, you should never stop marketing, with one exception. You're on trial, you get a pass for that period of time, and maybe a couple of days after, right? They always prioritize their activities, and they consistently devote time to it each week, no matter what. Well, and they don't say, I'm too busy to do this marketing stuff, because they know that then the funnel will dry up, because they don't market, and then they're in this perpetual up and down cycle. Instead of saying, I have admin, I have marketing to do, I'm going to block those in, and I'm going to get my legal work done around that. So, who do I work with here? Just some people. A bunch of these are New Yorkies, actually. You could read about the results that they get and other people get at testimonials. I have a Jumpstart consult if any of this sort of tweaks you, or in a good way tweaks you, where you say, like, yeah, how am I doing with rainmaking? Happy to do this Jumpstart consult. Ask me about it. And once again, there's a whole lot more materials in the resources pack that I call the Practice Development Resource Pack. And you can get that by texting resources to 444-999. And I have 301, so that was like 41 minutes, I think. Thank you very much.